Have you ever found yourself staring at a text message, overanalyzing every word, trying to decode what it really means? Or maybe you've been in a meeting where a colleague's tone suddenly shifted, leaving you wondering if you did something wrong. Mixed signals are everywhere in relationships, friendships, even at work, and they have a way of stirring up confusion, self-doubt, and that nagging feeling of being stuck in emotional limbo. It's exhausting, isn't it? The uncertainty, the second-guessing, the mental gymnastics of trying to read between lines that might not even be there. But what if there was a way to step out of that chaos and reclaim your peace of mind? That's where Stoicism comes in. This ancient philosophy, practiced by everyone from Roman emperors to modern-day leaders, isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending things don't bother you. It's about developing the clarity and resilience to navigate life's ambiguities without losing yourself in them. Think about the last time mixed signals threw you off balance. Maybe it was a partner who seemed distant but insisted everything was fine, or a boss whose praise felt oddly backhanded. Your mind probably raced through 100 scenarios, each one feeding your anxiety. Stoicism offers a different approach. Instead of getting tangled in what you can't control, other people's actions, their unclear intentions, you focus on what you can control, your perspective, your response, and your inner stability. Imagine how freeing it would be to face those confusing moments not with frustration but with calm confidence, to know that no matter how unclear others are, you have the tools to stay grounded, make clear decisions, and protect your emotional well-being. That's exactly what we're diving into today, 25 Stoic techniques to help you deal with mixed signals like a pro. These aren't just theoretical ideas, they're practical, battle-tested strategies that'll help you cut through the noise and find your footing, whether you're dealing with a flaky friend, a cryptic romantic interest, or a workplace full of unspoken tensions. By the end of this, you'll have a toolkit to transform ambiguity into opportunity, confusion into clarity, and anxiety into action. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start navigating life's uncertainties with unshakable poise, let's get started. Mixed signals thrive in the space between what someone says and what they do, a gap where uncertainty grows. The first and most powerful Stoic tool to dismantle that uncertainty is the dichotomy of control. Picture this: you're waiting for a reply to a message you sent days ago. Your mind spins with possibilities. Did they miss it? Are they ignoring you? Maybe they're busy, or maybe they're upset. Here's the Stoic interruption. None of those guesses change the fact that their response, or lack of one, isn't yours to control. What is yours? Your choice to wait patiently, to follow up with clarity, or to redirect your energy toward people who engage with you consistently. This isn't about shrugging off real concerns, it's about reclaiming agency. Ancient Stoics like Epictetus, born into slavery, understood this deeply. He couldn't control his master's whims, but he could control how he interpreted events and where he directed his attention. Fast forward to modern relationships. When a friend's hot and cold behavior leaves you unsettled, the dichotomy of control asks, what part of this is truly mine to manage? Their mood swings, no. Your decision to address it directly or distance yourself, absolutely. Let's make it practical. Say your coworker alternates between enthusiastic collaboration and passive-aggressive comments. Obsessing over why they act this way traps you in their emotional turbulence. Instead, apply the dichotomy. Their attitude is external, but your preparation for meetings, your professionalism, even your choice to limit interactions, those are internal. By shifting focus to your circle of control, you replace frustration with purposeful action. Notice the ripple effect. This technique doesn't just reduce anxiety, it upgrades your decision-making. No more overanalyzing vague texts or rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You invest in what you can influence, your boundaries, your communication, your peace. And when mixed signals lose their power to destabilize you, something remarkable happens. People's inconsistencies become data, not drama. you respond from integrity, not insecurity. That's the Stoic advantage, turning ambiguity into a mirror that reflects not others' chaos, but your own unwavering clarity. Let's break down how to apply the dichotomy of control in real time, so it becomes second nature when mixed signals hit. Start with this simple journaling exercise. The next time someone's unclear communication leaves you unsettled, grab a notebook and draw 2 columns. Label the first outside my control and the second within my control. In the first column, list every uncertainty swirling in your mind, their tone, their delayed response, their vague excuses. Now cross that entire column out, literally. The act of putting pen to paper and physically marking those things as not yours to solve shifts your brain from problem-solving mode to acceptance. In the second column, write actionable responses you can own. Maybe it's deciding to wait 72 hours before following up, or drafting a clear, unemotional message like, "I noticed your last reply felt brief, want to clarify where things stand." Notice the difference. One column drains your energy, the other directs it purposefully. For reframing, try the 3 questions Stoic drill. First, is this confusion mine to resolve? If the answer's no, like when someone leaves you on read, pause. Second, what's the most generous interpretation? Maybe they're overwhelmed, not indifferent. This isn't about excusing poor behavior, but preventing your mind from spiraling into worst-case scenarios. Third, what's one constructive move I can make? Perhaps it's redirecting your attention to a project or someone who values your time. Here's where it gets powerful. Apply this to recurring situations, like a flaky friend who cancels last minute. Instead of ruminating on their unreliability, your within my control column might include setting firmer plans. Let's lock a date or skip the maybe next times, or investing in friendships with people who show up. The goal isn't to change them, it's to reclaim your peace by aligning your efforts with what you actually influence. Epictetus famously said, "We suffer not from events, but from our judgments about them." Mixed signals are just events. The suffering comes from how we interpret them. By anchoring yourself in the dichotomy of control, you replace judgment with agency, and that's where real clarity begins. There's a counterintuitive secret Stoics have used for centuries to disarm mixed signals. Invite the worst-case scenario in. It sounds uncomfortable, maybe even unnerving. Why would you deliberately imagine being rejected, betrayed, or dismissed? But here's the twist. When you preemptively face what you fear most, those ambiguous texts, half-hearted replies, or sudden silences lose their grip on you. This is negative visualization, a technique as jarringly effective today as it was when Seneca wrote letters about preparing for exile or the death of loved ones. Picture this: someone you care about starts pulling away. Instead of clinging to hope or dissecting their every word, you pause and ask, what if they never text back? What if this friendship fades? Sit with that possibility, not to torture yourself, but to strip it of its power. By mentally rehearsing the loss, you accomplish 2 things. First, you expose the hidden assumption driving your anxiety, the belief that you can't handle the outcome you're dreading. Second, you realize something profound. Even if the worst happens, you'll adapt. History's Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire amid constant threats, wrote in his private journals, "The cucumber is bitter, then throw it out. There are brambles in your path, then go around." The lesson: obstacles, even emotional ones, become manageable when you stop resisting their existence. Let's make this practical. Say you're dating someone who's suddenly distant. Negative visualization asks you to play out the scenario you're avoiding. They're not interested anymore. Feel the initial sting, then fast forward. Watch yourself moving on, meeting new people, rediscovering hobbies. Suddenly, their mixed signals aren't a cliff edge, just uneven terrain you're prepared to navigate. This isn't pessimism, it's emotional inoculation. Like a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to build immunity, negative visualization lets you confront small doses of discomfort to strengthen resilience. Notice how this shifts your relationship to uncertainty. Instead of begging life for guarantees, you build confidence in your ability to recover, no matter how others act. Try this exercise tonight. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the exact outcome you're afraid of: the rejection, the awkward conversation, the silence. Sit with the discomfort until it feels familiar. Then ask, what would I do next? Write down 3 steps you'd take to rebuild. That's the Stoic pivot, from fearing the unknown to trusting your capacity to meet it. When mixed signals can no longer threaten you with surprises, they become just another part of life's landscape, something to observe, not something that overtakes you. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his closest allies while ruling Rome, a masterclass in navigating mixed signals with Stoic resolve. Imagine the scene: trusted advisors whispering behind his back, senators withholding crucial information, all while he carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Most leaders would unravel, obsessing over hidden motives or lashing out. Instead, he turned to negative visualization, writing in his journal. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. By anticipating deceit as a given, not a shock, he stripped it of its power to distract him. Here's how this applies to modern ambiguity. Take a CEO discovering her board might be plotting her ouster. She could panic, interpreting every vague email as confirmation. Or she could channel Aurelius. First, she'd mentally rehearse the worst, losing her position. Then she'd map her response, updating her resume, reaching out to mentors, even finding humor in the irony. When the coup finally came, she wasn't blindsided. She'd already processed the emotions and had a plan. The plotters expected tears. Instead, they got a handshake and a statement about her next venture. That's negative visualization in action, transforming potential devastation into a pivot point. Now consider how this works in everyday relationships. A teacher notices his star student suddenly skipping class. Instead of assuming disinterest, he prepares for harder truths, maybe a family crisis or depression. By envisioning these scenarios, he approaches the student not with frustration, but with calibrated concern. I've noticed you've been absent. Want to talk over coffee? The student confesses her parents are divorcing. Because the teacher had already braced for tough possibilities, his response came from compassion, not confusion. The brilliance of this technique lies in its reversal of power dynamics. Mixed signals thrive on keeping you guessing. Negative visualization flips the script. You're no longer reacting to someone else's ambiguity. You've already lived through it in your mind. Like a chess player thinking 10 moves ahead, you engage with life's uncertainties from a position of grounded readiness. Whether it's ancient emperors or modern professionals, those who master this don't just endure chaos, they rewrite the rules of the game. What if the very thing that unsettles you, those mixed signals, the uncertainty, could become fuel for your growth? That's the essence of Amor Fati, the Stoic practice of loving your fate. It's not about resigning yourself to confusion or pretending it doesn't sting. It's about recognizing that life's ambiguities aren't obstacles to happiness. They're the raw material for building resilience. Imagine standing in a storm and deciding to stop fighting the wind instead. You adjust your sails and let it propel you forward. That's what Amor Fati offers, a way to stop resisting life's unpredictability and start leveraging it. Take Friedrich Nietzsche, who borrowed this Stoic concept when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." He wasn't advocating passivity. He was describing a radical shift from seeing mixed signals as problems to solve to embracing them as invitations to deepen your adaptability. Think of a musician who thrives in improvisation. A wrong note isn't a mistake, it's a chance to pivot into something unexpected and brilliant. That's the mindset shift Amor Fati creates. Here's how to apply it. Next time someone's mixed signals leave you questioning, say, a friend who oscillates between warmth and indifference, pause and reframe. Instead of asking, why are they like this, try, how does this challenge me to grow? Maybe it's refining your communication skills, learning to set boundaries without resentment, or discovering how little you actually need others' validation to feel grounded. The confusion becomes a mirror reflecting back where you have room to evolve. Consider the paradox at work here. By embracing Amor Fati, you're not condoning inconsistent behavior, you're simply refusing to let it dictate your emotional weather. A project leader might face a team member whose feedback is unpredictably harsh one day and absent the next. Amor Fati asks, what if this inconsistency is exactly what I need to practice detached leadership? Instead of pleading for clarity, they might document concerns objectively, address patterns without emotional charge, or even recognize when to reallocate responsibilities. The mixed signals don't disappear, but their power to disrupt does. This technique shines brightest in relationships. A partner's hot and cold behavior can feel like a maze with no exit. Amor Fati offers a ladder. Climb above the maze and see it as a training ground for emotional independence. You might realize their inconsistency has taught you to voice needs more clearly, or to cherish your own company so deeply that their ambivalence can't shake you. The ultimate test when life sends mixed signals at scale, say, a job offer that's tantalizingly vague or a health diagnosis with unclear long-term effects. Amor Fati doesn't promise answers, but it does promise this: you'll meet uncertainty not as a victim but as a student. Every ambiguity becomes a lesson in patience, discernment, or surrender. And in that shift, you find something startlingly liberating: the freedom to love the journey, even when the path isn't clearly marked. Premeditatio malorum, a Stoic practice translating to the premeditation of evils, might sound dramatic, but its power lies in quiet preparation rather than fear. Imagine you're about to pitch an idea to your team. Instead of fixating on the applause you hope to receive, you take 5 minutes to mentally rehearse the toughest questions, the skeptical glances, even the possibility of outright rejection. This isn't pessimism, it's emotional armor. By anticipating misunderstandings or dishonesty, common culprits behind mixed signals, you strip them of their ability to catch you off guard. Consider how this applies to ambiguous relationships. A friend keeps canceling plans with vague excuses. Instead of clinging to hope or resentment, premeditatio malorum asks you to envision the conversation you've been avoiding. I've noticed our hangouts keep falling through. Is there something we should address? Play out their possible responses: defensiveness, indifference, even dishonesty. Notice how, once you've mentally walked through these scenarios, the uncertainty loses its edge. You're no longer bracing for impact, you've already mapped the terrain. The ancient Stoics treated this like a fire drill. Seneca would practice poverty, sleeping on the floor and wearing rough clothes to remind himself that comfort wasn't guaranteed. Modern life might not demand such extremes, but the principle holds. When you rehearse life's frictions, they can't ambush you. Take a colleague who routinely takes credit for your ideas in meetings. Premeditatio malorum would have you prepare not just for the next stolen idea, but for the awkward confrontation afterward. Draft your response in advance. I noticed you presented my analysis as your own. Let's clarify roles moving forward. By preempting the discomfort, you turn potential chaos into a script you control. Here's the subtle shift this technique creates. Most people treat mixed signals like a mystery to solve, digging for hidden meanings, analyzing tone, searching for clues. Premeditatio malorum reframes them as inevitabilities to prepare for, not puzzles to crack. A romantic partner who's suddenly distant, instead of dissecting their text, you mentally walk through the breakup talk. A client who's been non-committal. You rehearse the moving in another direction email. The result: when ambiguity strikes, you respond with calm precision, not frantic speculation. This practice shines brightest in high-stakes scenarios. Picture a negotiator entering a deal with a partner known for last-minute reversals. Rather than hoping for honesty, they've already planned for betrayal, contingencies in place, exit strategies clear. The partner's mixed signals become background noise, not landmines, or a parent navigating a teen's erratic moods. Premeditatio malorum helps them anticipate lies about homework or curfews, not with cynicism but with prepared calm. I noticed your story changed. Want to try that again? The brilliance of this technique isn't just in cushioning emotional falls, it's in how it reshapes your relationship with uncertainty. Life's ambiguities stop being threats and start being drills. Each mixed signal becomes a chance to refine your resilience, like a musician practicing scales so they're second nature during a performance. You'll find yourself walking into conversations not with trepidation but with quiet readiness, knowing you've already faced the worst in your mind and survived. That's the Stoic secret. When you stop fearing the shadows, the light feels even brighter. Ever found yourself obsessing over a cryptic text message or a colleague's offhand comment, only to realize weeks later it barely mattered? That's where the view from above, a Stoic technique borrowed from Marcus Aurelius, comes in. Picture yourself floating high above the earth, watching the tiny dramas of human interaction unfold like ants passing signals. From this vantage point, how significant does that unanswered email or vague compliment really seem? The goal isn't to dismiss your feelings but to recalibrate their volume. Mixed signals thrive on the illusion of urgency, as if every ambiguous moment carries existential weight. Zooming out reveals the truth most don't. Consider how this works in practice. A client leaves your proposal in limbo for weeks, their replies growing increasingly evasive. Your gut reaction might be to chase, overanalyze, or assume failure. But the view from above asks, in 5 years, will this delay even register? More importantly, does their hesitation define your worth or capability? History's Stoics routinely used this perspective to navigate betrayal and political intrigue. Cicero, facing exile, wrote of imagining his troubles as mere speckles on the vast canvas of time. That shift didn't erase his pain, but it allowed him to act from principle rather than panic. Now apply this to modern relationships. A partner's sudden coldness feels catastrophic in the moment, but the view from above reframes it. Is this a temporary rift or a fundamental mismatch? Either way, life, with its infinite connections and opportunities, continues. The technique's power lies in its ability to neutralize emotional vertigo. Like stepping back from a painting to see the whole artwork, you stop fixating on brushstrokes, their tone, their timing, and start noticing the larger composition, your resilience, your options. Try this exercise today. When mixed signals trigger that familiar tightness in your chest, close your eyes and mentally ascend. See your city, then your country, then the planet suspended in space. Notice how small the moment becomes, then ask, what action aligns with my values regardless of their ambiguity? Maybe it's sending one clear follow-up before moving on, or quietly observing their patterns without internalizing them. The view from above doesn't demand indifference, just proportion. Here's the unexpected side effect. The less you magnify mixed signals, the more clearly you see their true origins. Flakiness often reveals someone else's overwhelm, not your inadequacy. Vague replies may reflect their communication flaws, not your worthiness of clarity. By shrinking the drama, you gain something far more valuable: the space to respond, not react. And in that space, you'll find a quiet confidence no mixed signal can shake. There's a quiet power in transferring your swirling thoughts onto paper, a magic trick the Stoics knew well. When faced with mixed signals, our minds become echo chambers of speculation, replaying vague phrases and half-hearted gestures until they distort into monsters. Journaling slices through that noise like a scalpel, separating raw facts from the stories we've draped over them. Picture this: after a third cancelled coffee date with a friend, you're cycling between blame and self-doubt. Are they avoiding me? Did I offend them? But when you open a notebook and write only observable facts, they cancelled 3 times with under 24 hours notice, each time citing work. The pattern emerges. Not as an emotional wound, but as data. Marcus Aurelius modeled this perfectly. His private journals, now known as meditations, weren't elaborate prose, they were stark reminders to himself. Today I will meet interference, ingratitude, insolence by naming behaviors plainly. He stripped them of emotional charge. Modern psychology backs this. Studies show expressive writing reduces anxiety by organizing chaotic thoughts. Apply this to ambiguous situations. A colleague's feedback alternates between glowing and cryptic. Track exact quotes and dates. Over time, you might notice their vagueness spikes before budget reviews. A sign their mixed signals reflect corporate stress, not your performance. Here's how to journal like a Stoic. First, fact-only entries. Describe actions without interpretation. They left my message on read for 48 hours, not they're ignoring me. Next, emotion logs. Contrast facts with feelings. Fact, they didn't invite me to the meeting. Feeling, rejected. This creates space to question assumptions. Finally, pattern alerts. After 2 weeks, review entries for repetition like a partner who only gets distant after family visits. Suddenly, their behavior isn't mysterious, it's predictable, even manageable. The real transformation happens when journaling shifts from passive recording to active problem solving. Say you identify that a friend's mixed signals always follow your political debates. Now you have options. Avoid hot topics, accept their inconsistency, or address it directly. Journaling doesn't just reveal patterns, it hands you the reins. No more decoding shadows on the wall, you're holding the flashlight. Think of your journal as a courtroom where facts testify and emotions cross-examine. Over time, you become both judge and jury, rendering verdicts not on others' intentions but on your own responses. That's the Stoic breakthrough. When mixed signals arise, you're no longer a passenger in someone else's fog, you're the cartographer, mapping the terrain with your own clarity. Mixed signals have a way of pulling us out of the present moment, into the past, dissecting every word that was said, or into the future, imagining every possible outcome. But Stoicism offers a counterintuitive remedy: mindfulness. Not the modern version with meditation apps and breathing exercises, though those help, but a raw, grounded awareness Epictetus called prosouch, attention to the here and now. He wrote, "Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent." That's the Stoic pause button. When someone's mixed signals trigger that familiar spiral, prosouch asks you to freeze frame the moment before your mind races ahead. Think about how this works in practice. You're waiting for a reply to an important message and your phone buzzes, only to be a spam email. Your chest tightens. The old pattern would be to immediately spin stories. Are they avoiding me? Did I say something wrong? Stoic mindfulness interrupts that script. Instead of launching into speculation, you anchor yourself in the actual present. My phone buzzed. It was an advertisement, that's all that happened. The uncertainty remains, but you've stopped amplifying it with imagined narratives. This technique shines in face-to-face interactions too. Picture a conversation where someone's tone suddenly shifts. Your instinct might be to replay their words in your head, searching for hidden meanings. But Epictetus would challenge you. What's actually happening right now, not yesterday's conversation or tomorrow's potential confrontation, just this moment. Their tone changed. That's the observable fact. The rest is interpretation, and interpretations are optional. The magic of Stoic mindfulness lies in its simplicity. It doesn't ask you to suppress emotions or pretend ambiguity doesn't exist. It simply draws a line between what's real and what's imagined. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself, objective judgment now at this very moment. Unselfish action now at this very moment. Willing acceptance now at this very moment. Notice the repetition of now. mixed signals lose their power when you refuse to time travel into hypotheticals. Try this exercise next time ambiguity strikes. Pause and name 3 concrete things in your immediate environment: the sound of traffic outside, the weight of your phone in your hand, the temperature of the air. This isn't avoidance, it's recalibration. By grounding yourself in sensory reality, you create space to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. Here's the deeper truth this practice reveals. Most mixed signals aren't about you at all. Someone's delayed reply often reflects their schedule, not their feelings about you. A coworker's cryptic comment might stem from their own stress. Stoic mindfulness doesn't just keep you present, it fosters empathy. When you stop personalizing ambiguity, you start seeing it for what it usually is: noise, not a message. And in that clarity, you'll find something unexpected: the freedom to move through life's uncertainties, not as a detective searching for clues, but as an observer at ease with not knowing. Let's talk about the dangerous habit we all fall into: the rush to assign meaning before the facts are in. Someone sends a one-word reply, and instantly we've scripted an entire narrative. They're mad, they're bored, they're losing interest. Stoics called this premature judgment prolepsis, a preconception that hijacks your clarity. The antidote: the discipline of assent, a practice Epictetus drilled into his students. Don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Say to it, wait for me a little, let me see who you are and what you represent. This isn't about ignoring red flags, it's about refusing to let vague signals become definitive truths without evidence. Imagine your boss sends an email that feels abrupt. Your stomach drops as you scan for hidden criticism. But here's where the discipline of assent steps in. It slams the brakes on that interpretation. Instead of reacting, you dissect the email clinically. What exact words did they use? Is there a pattern of similar messages, or is this an outlier? You might realize their terseness mirrors emails sent from their phone or coincides with quarterly deadlines. Suddenly, the story you told yourself unravels. History offers a striking example. When Roman soldiers brought Seneca false rumors of his friend's betrayal, he refused to condemn the man until hearing his side. That restraint saved their friendship. The evidence was just a miscommunication. Modern life is full of similar traps. A partner forgets an anniversary, and we leap to "they don't care" instead of "they're overwhelmed at work." The discipline of assent forces us to inhabit the gray area, that uncomfortable space between "something's wrong" and "I know exactly what it is." Here's how to train this muscle. Next time ambiguous behavior triggers an assumption, create a fact vs. story chart. In one column, list observable facts. They didn't text back for 8 hours. In the other, write the story you're tempted to believe. They're avoiding me. Then hunt for disconfirming evidence. Did they mention a busy day? Have they gone silent before without ill intent? This isn't making excuses for others, it's ensuring your reactions align with reality, not guesswork. The ripple effects are profound. Withholding judgment shrinks unnecessary conflicts. That coworker who seemed to snub you in the hallway, maybe they were distracted by a family crisis. The friend who skipped your party, perhaps social anxiety struck, not apathy. By suspending conclusions, you leave room for empathy and accuracy to emerge. But here's the crucial twist: the discipline of assent isn't passive, it's active inquiry. When signals stay persistently mixed, Stoicism doesn't demand endless patience. It empowers you to seek clarity directly. Your recent messages felt distant. Want to talk about it? Notice the difference. You're not accusing or assuming, but inviting truth to surface. That's the balanced approach, neither spinning stories in the dark nor ignoring genuine signs of trouble. Ultimately, this discipline isn't just about interpreting others, it's about reclaiming your mental sovereignty. Every mixed signal becomes a test. Will I let uncertainty dictate my emotions, or will I demand evidence before surrendering my peace? Choose the latter, and you'll find something remarkable. The less you assume, the more life reveals its truths willingly. There's a moment we all recognize, that split second when mixed signals hit and your pulse quickens, fingers hovering over the keyboard to fire off a reactive message or demanding call. Stoics called this the propatheia, the initial involuntary flash of emotion before reason kicks in. The art of non-reactivity isn't about silencing that reaction. It's about inserting a deliberate pause between stimulus and response, creating space to choose your next move rather than surrendering to impulse. Picture a martial artist sidestepping a blow instead of meeting force with force. That's the grace non-reactivity offers in emotional combat. Start with the 10-second rule, a modern twist on Epictetus teaching that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak. When faced with a baffling text or abrupt comment, physically place your phone face down or step away from the conversation for 10 seconds. In that brief window, ask 2 questions. What evidence do I actually have? And what would my calmest self do next? This isn't passive avoidance, it's strategic delay. History offers a vivid example. When Julius Caesar received letters warning of plots against him, he trained himself to finish reading before reacting, a habit that saved him from acting on false alarms while keeping him alert to real threats. Now layer in the third-person drill. Imagine observing the situation as a neutral advisor. What would you tell a friend in your position? A manager receiving mixed feedback from leadership might journal. Alex's boss praised their initiative Monday but questioned their priorities Wednesday. Alex feels whiplash but notes the criticism came during budget stress. Recommendation: request a clarity meeting with prepared examples. Detaching your personal narrative from the ambiguity reveals paths invisible when emotionally entangled. But non-reactivity reaches its zenith with the Stoic pause ritual. Ancient practitioners would literally touch a symbolic object, a ring, a coin, as a physical reminder to slow down. Modernize this by choosing an anchor, a deep breath, a sip of water, or even unlocking your phone with the opposite hand. These micro-pauses disrupt autopilot reactions. Consider a parent whose teen snaps whatever to a heartfelt question. Instead of escalating, they might straighten a picture frame on the wall, a tactile cue to respond with sounds like you're frustrated. Want space or want to talk? The mixed signal becomes a dialogue starter, not a trigger. The brilliance of non-reactivity lies in its ripple effects. Each time you resist the urge to mirror someone's ambiguity with frantic energy, you train your nervous system to associate uncertainty with curiosity rather than threat. Over time, what once felt like emotional whiplash, a partner's sudden distance, a friend's hot and cold behavior, becomes data to assess, not storms to weather. You'll find yourself listening more deeply to what's not said, noticing patterns others miss, and responding not from insecurity but from grounded discernment. That's the ultimate victory, when mixed signals no longer dictate your emotional climate, because you've mastered the art of keeping your own weather steady. Here's the radical truth at the heart of Stoicism. If your sense of worth depends on others' consistency, their texts returned promptly, their praise delivered warmly, you've handed them the keys to your emotional well-being. Virtue as the sole good flips this dynamic entirely. Imagine walking through life with an unshakable inner compass where mixed signals don't derail you because your value isn't up for debate. It's anchored in something far deeper. Your integrity, your courage, your commitment to doing right regardless of how others act. This isn't just philosophical idealism, it's battle-tested resilience. Consider Cato the Younger, a Roman senator who faced political opponents constantly shifting alliances. While others scrambled to decode veiled threats or last-minute betrayals, Cato's North Star was simple. What does justice demand of me? His clarity didn't make him indifferent to danger, it made him immune to manipulation. When mixed signals swirled around him, he didn't waste energy interpreting them. He focused on upholding his principles. The result, even his enemies respected his consistency, and history remembers his uncompromising character centuries later. Apply this to modern ambiguity. A manager's feedback oscillates between glowing praise and vague criticism. If your self-worth is tied to their approval, this inconsistency becomes torture. But virtue as the sole good asks a different question. Am I doing my work with excellence and honesty? If the answer's yes, their shifting opinions become background noise. This doesn't mean ignoring constructive feedback. It means filtering it through your own ethical standards rather than anxiously clinging to every word. The power of this approach lies in its liberation. Think of a musician who plays for the love of the craft, not the crowd's applause. If some listeners walk out mid-performance, it stings, but it doesn't shake her belief in the music's worth. Similarly, when you root your identity in virtues like fairness, kindness, and perseverance, others' inconsistencies lose their power to define you. A friend's sudden coldness might prompt curiosity. Is something wrong? But not self-doubt. Am I unworthy? Here's how to practice this shift. First, define your core virtues, not abstract ideals, but concrete behaviors. For Marcus Aurelius, it was patience in debate, generosity with time, and discipline in habits. Write yours down. I show up on time. I speak truth kindly. I honor commitments. Next, create a daily virtue check at sunset. Reflect not on how others treated you, but on how you lived your values. Did you gossip when a coworker was ambiguous or address concerns directly? Did you retaliate with vagueness when a partner was distant or communicate with clarity? The unexpected gift of this technique, it often transforms relationships. When you stop seeking validation through others' consistency, you paradoxically become more magnetic. People sense your groundedness, the way you're neither desperate for their approval nor devastated by their indifference. And when mixed signals do arise, you'll find yourself responding from a place of quiet strength, not frantic interpretation. After all, if your worth isn't negotiable, ambiguity becomes just another part of the human landscape, something to navigate with curiosity, not fear. That's the ultimate Stoic rebellion, building a self-concept so sturdy that no mixed signal can shake its foundation. Whether others communicate with crystal clarity or riddles matters less when you measure yourself by a far more reliable standard, the content of your own character. Imagine you're holding a jar of muddy water. The more you shake it, the murkier it gets. That's exactly what happens when we emotionally react to mixed signals. Objective labeling is the practice of setting that jar down and letting the sediment settle until you can see clearly. It's about stripping away the layers of "they're losing interest" or "I must have done something wrong" and replacing them with bare, observable facts. They postponed our meeting twice without rescheduling. This technique doesn't ask you to ignore your feelings. It simply creates space between what happened and the story you're tempted to tell about it. Start with a just the facts exercise. Next time someone's behavior leaves you confused, grab your phone or a notebook and describe the situation as if you were a journalist reporting strictly what you witnessed. For example, fact, they said I'll call you tonight but didn't. Fact, they complimented my work in private but didn't acknowledge it in the team meeting. By omitting interpretations like "they lied" or "they're two-faced," you sidestep the emotional quicksand. Historians do this instinctively when analyzing ambiguous events. Take Cleopatra's famous interactions with Rome scholars' separate verifiable actions. She sent Caesar a rolled-up carpet from speculative motives. She was manipulating him. The same discipline applied to modern relationships keeps you grounded in reality, not conjecture. Now add the pattern vs. one-off filter. Not every mixed signal signifies a deeper issue. Sometimes people are just distracted or overwhelmed. Label each observation with its frequency. One-off, they forgot our lunch date once during tax season. Pattern, they've cancelled 4 out of 6 weekend plans citing exhaustion. This distinction helps allocate your emotional energy wisely. A client who's usually prompt but delays a single reply during a product launch likely isn't ghosting you. Meanwhile, repeated inconsistencies warrant attention, not as personal slights, but as data points for decision-making. For advanced practice, borrow the scientific method approach. Treat each mixed signal like a hypothesis to test, not a verdict to accept. For instance, observation: they abruptly ended our call. Possible interpretations: they were busy / they were upset / they had poor reception. Test: send a neutral follow-up. Got cut off earlier, everything okay? The response or lack thereof provides evidence to support or discard theories. This method transforms ambiguity from a source of anxiety into a problem-solving exercise. The magic of objective labeling lies in its side effects. When you describe behavior neutrally, "they left the group chat after my comment," instead of "they're punishing me," you often spot plausible explanations that emotion obscures. Maybe their phone died or they muted notifications during work. More crucially, you regain agency. Instead of ruminating on unanswerable whys, you focus on actionable whats. What boundaries do I set? What conversation do I initiate? Stoic philosopher Seneca practiced this when advising his friend Lucilius. Distress is born not from circumstances, but from the stories we graft onto them. A partner's sudden distance feels less like rejection when labeled, "they've been working late 3 nights this week," rather than "they don't love me anymore." The facts remain the same, but your emotional trajectory changes entirely, from spiraling to steady, from reactive to responsive. Try this today. Pick one confusing interaction and write 3 factual statements about it, then lock away all interpretations for 24 hours. You'll likely find that time and objectivity reveal what knee-jerk emotions couldn't, that most mixed signals are noise, not messages, and the few that matter become clearer when viewed through the lens of cold, calm observation. There's a subtle but transformative habit the ancient Stoics practiced, one that could save you countless hours of frustration when plans crumble or promises evaporate. It's called the reserve clause, and it works like an emotional shock absorber. Picture this: you're excited about an upcoming trip with a friend. Instead of thinking, "we're definitely going to the coast next weekend," you add 2 quiet words, "fate permitting." Those words aren't pessimism, they're psychological armor. By acknowledging that outcomes aren't entirely in your hands, you preemptively soften the sting if life or someone's mixed signals derails your expectations. This concept traces back to Seneca, who wrote letters reminding his friends that even the most solid plans should be held lightly, as if loaned to us. He knew what modern psychology confirms: our brains treat expectations like guarantees, setting us up for disappointment when reality intervenes. The reserve clause rewires that reflex. Take job interviews. Instead of fixating on "I'll land this role," the Stoic approach would be "I'll give my best performance, fate permitting." This shift doesn't reduce your effort. It detaches your self-worth from uncontrollable variables like a hiring manager's whims or office politics. Think of the reserve clause as a mental footnote to every expectation. A parent might tell their teen, "We'll have dinner together tonight unless something urgent comes up." A freelancer could email a client, "I'll deliver the draft by Friday, barring any tech disasters." These tiny qualifiers serve a dual purpose. They prepare you for alternate outcomes while subtly reminding others that commitments aren't absolute. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The cucumber is bitter, then throw it out," he wasn't being flippant, he was modeling how to release expectations without drama when circumstances change. Here's where this gets powerful for mixed signals. When someone's actions don't match their words, say, a date who claims they're "so excited to see you but keeps postponing," the reserve clause helps you reframe. Instead of clinging to their initial enthusiasm, you adjust internally. "They seem interested, fate permitting." This doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means withholding full emotional investment until their behavior aligns with their talk. Ancient Stoics saw this as wisdom, not cynicism. Epictetus advised his students to say, "I want this if nothing prevents it," for every desire, training them to separate effort from entitlement. Try this exercise today for every plan or promise you encounter, whether it's your own or someone else's. Mentally append, fate permitting. Notice how it changes your emotional posture. That coworker who keeps hinting at a promotion, they'll advocate for me, fate permitting. The friend who swears they'll finally introduce you to their contacts. It'll happen, fate permitting. Over time, you'll catch yourself feeling less betrayed when things fall through because you've already factored in life's unpredictability. The reserve clause isn't about expecting failure, it's about making peace with the gap between intention and reality. When mixed signals leave you in limbo, this practice lets you hold two truths at once. I hope for the best, but I'm ready for other outcomes. That balance is where real resilience lies, not in rigid certainty, but in adaptable trust. And in that space, you'll find something unexpected: the freedom to engage fully without being devastated when life or people don't follow the script. Mixed signals often feel like personal offenses, arrows shot directly at our hearts. But what if those confusing behaviors weren't about us at all, but fragments of a much larger story we can't fully see? The Stoics called this sympatheia, the profound interconnectedness of all things. Picture a spiderweb at dawn, glistening with dew. Tug one strand and the whole structure trembles. Human relationships work the same way. That friend who's suddenly distant, they might be grappling with a parent's illness. The colleague who alternates between warmth and coldness. Perhaps they're navigating a crumbling marriage. Sympatheia invites us to zoom out, recognizing that every ambiguous action we encounter is just one visible thread in a vast, invisible tapestry of struggles we may never witness. This perspective isn't about excusing poor treatment, it's about dissolving resentment before it poisons us. Marcus Aurelius modeled this daily. Amid betrayals and political intrigue, he reminded himself, when people injure you, ask yourself, what good or harm did they see in this? If you understand their why, you'll feel sympathy rather than rage. Modern psychology echoes this. Studies show that humanizing those who frustrate us, imagining their stressors, fears, or unmet needs, reduces cortisol spikes and fosters emotional resilience. Let's make this practical. Your partner forgets your anniversary after years of perfect remembrance. Instead of spiraling into "they don't love me," sympatheia prompts questions like, what burdens might be weighing on them? Could their distraction reflect something unrelated to us? This shift doesn't mean ignoring hurt feelings. It means addressing them from a place of curiosity rather than indictment. I noticed our anniversary slipped by. Everything okay? The ripple effects are profound. A manager receives erratic emails from a usually dependable employee. Instead of reprimanding, they privately ask, "Your last few messages felt rushed. Want to talk about any roadblocks?" The employee confesses they're caring for a newborn with colic. Now the ambiguity isn't a performance issue, it's a shared challenge to accommodate. But sympatheia extends beyond individual relationships. It reframes how we move through the world. That stranger who snapped at you in line, maybe they just left a hospital room. The neighbor who keeps canceling plans, they could be battling depression. When we train ourselves to ask, what else might be true, mixed signals transform from personal slights into reminders of our shared fragility. Try this tonight. Pick one confusing interaction and write 2 backstories for the other person's behavior. One negative, they're selfish, and one compassionate, they're overwhelmed. Notice how each narrative shapes your emotions. The Stoics knew this. The stories we tell about others' actions don't just describe reality, they create it. By choosing narratives that acknowledge our interconnectedness, we don't just endure life's ambiguities, we meet them with the grace that someday, in our own moments of unintended ambiguity, we'd hope to receive. Our egos have a remarkable way of turning ambiguous behavior into personal indictments. When someone sends mixed signals, it's rarely about us, yet we instinctively make it so. weaving narratives where their inconsistency becomes proof of our inadequacy. If they cared, they'd be clear. If I were worth it, they'd commit. This ego-driven personalization amplifies the sting far beyond the actual event. Stoicism offers a counterweight, humility, not the self-deprecating kind, but the clear-eyed recognition that we aren't the protagonists of everyone else's story. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Consider how ego distorts reality. A friend forgets your birthday and your mind races. They're distancing themselves because I'm not important enough. But humility interjects, or they're overwhelmed with their sick child. The Stoics practiced this depersonalization of events rigorously. Epictetus, born into slavery, had every reason to interpret life's cruelties as personal attacks. Yet he taught that suffering arises not from events, but from our insistence that events should conform to our expectations. When someone's mixed signals trigger you, it's often your ego protesting. How dare they treat me this way? As if the universe or that person owes you unambiguous regard. History offers a striking example. When Alexander the Great visited the philosopher Diogenes, who famously lived in a barrel, he asked if the philosopher wanted anything. Diogenes replied, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." Alexander's ego could have taken offense, interpreting the remark as insolence. Instead, he admired Diogenes' indifference to status, a humility that reframed the interaction entirely. Modern relationships need the same recalibration. That dating prospect who's hot then cold, your ego screams, "They're playing games with me," humility whispers, or "They're conflicted about what they want, which has nothing to do with me." Here's how to apply this shift. First, practice the third-party lens. Imagine observing the situation as a neutral outsider. Would you assume a coworker's vague feedback reflects on you, or might it reveal their own stress? Second, adopt the 10-year test. Will this ambiguity matter in a decade? Usually not, but your reaction to it might, if it erodes your peace today. The real power of Stoic humility lies in its liberating honesty. Most mixed signals aren't about you at all. They're about the other person's struggles, fears, or contradictions. When you release the ego's need to center yourself in every narrative, you gain something rare, the ability to navigate ambiguity without internalizing it. And in that space, you'll find a quiet confidence that no mixed signal can shake. That cryptic text, that friend who keeps drifting in and out of your life, the colleague whose enthusiasm waxes and wanes like the moon. What if you could hold them all more lightly, not because you don't care, but because you recognize their fleeting nature? This is the power of contemplating impermanence, a Stoic practice that transforms our relationship with mixed signals by grounding us in the truth that nothing lasts forever. Picture yourself standing by a river, watching leaves float past. Some tumble wildly in the current, some glide smoothly, but all eventually disappear downstream. Relationships, careers, even our own emotions share this same transient quality, constantly shifting, never frozen in place. When we internalize this, ambiguity stops feeling like a betrayal and starts feeling like the natural rhythm of life. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this daily, reminding himself that even the things we cling to most tightly, our reputations, our closest bonds, are as temporary as the leaves the wind scatters on the ground. He wasn't advocating detachment from joy, but freedom from the illusion that anything human-made could be permanent. Think of how this applies to modern ambiguity. That romantic partner who sends confusing signals, contemplating impermanence allows you to ask, if this connection fades in 6 months, will I still respect how I showed up? Suddenly, their mixed messages become less about decoding their intentions and more about honoring your own values in the time you have. The practice shines brightest when applied to workplace uncertainty. A manager who vacillates between praise and criticism might trigger anxiety if you assume this dynamic will last forever. But when you remember that teams reshuffle, companies restructure, and careers evolve, their inconsistency becomes just one chapter in a much longer story. Ancient Stoics trained for this by visualizing their own deaths, a dramatic exercise meant to sharpen focus on what truly matters. A gentler modern version might involve reflecting at month's end. What misunderstandings or mixed signals from weeks ago no longer occupy my mind? You'll likely discover that most ambiguities resolve or become irrelevant with time, yet the energy you spent obsessing over them can't be reclaimed. Here's how to make this practical. First, try the temporal tagging exercise. When confronted with mixed signals, mentally project forward. Will this confusion matter in 6 weeks? 6 months? If the answer's no, note it and redirect your attention. If yes, ask, what's one small step toward clarity I can take today? Second, adopt the season's lens. Imagine the situation as a season, intense but inherently temporary. Winter's harshness doesn't mean spring won't come. A friend's current distance doesn't foretell permanent estrangement. The paradox of impermanence is that it makes the present more precious, not less. When you stop demanding guarantees of permanence from relationships or circumstances, you become free to appreciate them as they are, flaws, ambiguities, and all. That colleague whose communication style frustrates you, they might transfer teams next quarter. The relative who oscillates between warmth and indifference. Life's uncertainties ensure your dynamic will inevitably change. This realization doesn't promote apathy, it fosters presence. You engage fully while holding outcomes lightly, like cupping water in your hands, savoring its coolness without clutching so tightly that it drains away. Ultimately, contemplating impermanence isn't about dismissing what matters. It's about discerning what truly deserves your limited time and attention. Mixed signals lose their power to disturb when viewed through the lens of life's natural ebb and flow. What remains isn't indifference but a quiet confidence, the understanding that while you can't control how others show up, you can always choose how you respond today in this fleeting and precious moment. When mixed signals leave you tangled in confusion, the Stoic response test cuts through the noise like a surgeon's scalpel, not by obsessing over what others meant, but by methodically examining your own position. Picture this as a 2-question mental fire drill. First, is this within my control? And second, does my response align with virtue? These aren't abstract musings, they're pressure-tested filters that distill ambiguity into clear action. Imagine you're staring at a text thread where someone's tone abruptly shifted from warm to frosty. Your instinct might be to dissect their words for hidden meanings or draft 3 different replies. But the Stoic response test interrupts that spiral with clinical precision. Can I control their tone? No. Can I control whether I respond with patience and clarity? Absolutely. This technique traces back to Epictetus, who taught that every external event, including someone's confusing behavior, is like a clay pot handed to us. We don't control how it's shaped, but we decide how to hold it. Modern psychology echoes this. Studies show that decision fatigue plagues us most when we fixate on uncontrollable variables. The Stoic response test redirects that energy. Take a workplace example. Your manager praised your project in private but omitted your contribution during the stakeholder meeting. The first question, is there recognition within my control, shifts your focus from resentment to agency. The second, does demanding credit align with my values, might lead you to document your work transparently rather than confront them aggressively. But here's where it gets transformative. The test isn't just about whether to act, it's about how. A friend who alternates between enthusiastic plans and last-minute cancellations might fail your first question. Their flakiness isn't yours to fix. But the second question, what's the virtuous response, could reveal options invisible in the fog of frustration. Maybe it's setting firmer boundaries, let's only schedule when you're certain, or investing in friendships with more consistent people. The Stoics called this prohersis, the power to choose your aim wisely. History offers a striking case study. When Cotto the Younger faced political rivals who vacillated between alliances and betrayals, he didn't waste energy interpreting their shifts. He asked, can I control their loyalty? No. Can I act with integrity regardless? Yes. His unwavering consistency, rooted in these questions, made him a moral compass even for enemies. Try this tonight. Next time mixed signals stir up chaos, pause and grab a notepad. Draw 2 columns, control and virtue. Under control, list every confounding element, their tone, their timing, their ambiguity, then cross them out. Under virtue, write responses that honor your principles. Send one clear follow-up. Assume good intent until proven otherwise. Walk away if respect isn't mutual. The act of physically externalizing this test rewires your brain's reflex from "what do they mean?" to "how can I meet this with dignity?" The magic lies in the test's simplicity. Unlike endlessly analyzing others' motives, these 2 questions yield immediate clarity. They're the ultimate Stoic hack, transforming emotional turbulence into a checklist that grounds you, action by action, in what truly matters, not the chaos around you, but the character within you. What if you had access to an inner compass that always pointed true north, even in the thickest fog of mixed signals? That's the power of modeling the sage, a Stoic practice where you pause and ask one game-changing question. How would a Stoic sage respond to this? Picture the sage as your wisest, most unshakable self, the version of you who isn't rattled by ambiguity, who meets confusion with clarity, and whose actions flow from principle rather than panic. This isn't about perfection, it's about borrowing the perspective of someone who sees the bigger picture when your vision feels clouded by emotion. History offers a vivid template. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once lost everything in a shipwreck: his wealth, his cargo, even his identity as a merchant. Stranded in Athens with nothing, he could have spiraled into despair. Instead, he famously walked into a bookstore, discovered philosophy, and rebuilt his life with a new purpose. That pivotal moment wasn't luck, it was the sage's mindset in action meeting chaos, not with "why me?" but with "what now?" Fast forward to modern ambiguity. When your boss's feedback oscillates between praise and silence, channeling the sage means asking not, "Are they unhappy with me?" but "How would someone grounded in wisdom handle this?" The answer might look like requesting specific feedback during your next one-on-one, or documenting your wins objectively to quiet self-doubt. Here's how to make this practical. First, create your sage profile. Jot down 3 to 5 traits your ideal Stoic sage embodies, perhaps patience, discernment, or courageous honesty. When mixed signals strike, consult this list. For example, sage trait: seeks clarity without attachment to the answer. Application: instead of overanalyzing a partner's vague text, you send one courteous request for clarification. Want to make sure I'm hearing you right, can you say more? Then redirect your energy until they respond. The brilliance of this technique lies in its flexibility. Your sage might differ from Marcus Aurelius or Seneca's, and that's the point. A young professional sage could prioritize assertive communication, while a parent sage might emphasize compassionate boundary setting, the common thread. Modeling the sage pulls you out of reactive mode and into intentional action. Consider the ripple effects. A project team receives conflicting directives from leadership. While others panic, one member channels their inner sage, asking, "What would someone unswayed by chaos do?" They organize a bullet-pointed email summarizing the ambiguities and requesting alignment, a move that earns praise for leadership amid disorder. Or take a friendship strained by inconsistent outreach. The sage doesn't chase or resent. They assess whether the relationship still aligns with their values, then act accordingly, whether that's initiating an honest conversation or gracefully stepping back. This practice shines brightest when stakes are high. Imagine discovering your romantic partner has been hiding financial struggles. Ego might scream betrayal. But the sage asks, what's the most constructive way to address this together? The shift isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about letting wisdom, not wounds, guide your next move. Try this tonight. Reflect on a recent ambiguous situation. Write how you reacted, then rewrite how your sage would have handled it. Notice the gap, then bridge it. That's the magic of modeling. It doesn't just solve problems in the moment. It gradually sculpts you into the kind of person who navigates life's uncertainties not as a storm-tossed ship, but as a lighthouse, steady, clear, and unshaken by the chaos around you. Every athlete knows this truth: the heavier the weight, the stronger you become. What if the same principle applied to emotional resilience? Those confusing moments when someone's words don't match their actions aren't just frustrations, they're resistance training for your stoic muscles. This is the art of turning obstacles into fuel, where mixed signals stop being problems to solve and start becoming opportunities to practice unshakable clarity. Think of it like this: when a runner hits a hill, they don't curse the incline, they lean into it, knowing each step builds endurance that flat ground never could. History offers a masterclass in this mindset. Cleans, successor to Zeno as head of the Stoic school, supported himself by hauling water at night, backbreaking work that left him penniless and exhausted. Yet he reframed those grueling hours as mental training, once saying, "While carrying my load of water, I'm strengthening my courage and discipline." His hardship wasn't an obstacle to his philosophy, it was his philosophy in action. Fast forward to modern relationships. When a friend's inconsistent communication tests your patience, you're not losing peace, you're gaining the chance to practice patience as intentionally as Cleans practiced lifting his jugs. Here's how to make this shift tangible. First, reframe with the emotional reps exercise. Each time someone's mixed signals trigger that familiar tension, maybe a partner leaves your message on read or a coworker dodges your questions, mentally label it, "This is my next set." Just as a weightlifter counts repetitions, acknowledge the discomfort as deliberate training. This isn't confusion, it's resistance building my discernment. Next, adopt the three-stage strength test, modeled after Seneca's approach to adversity. Stage 1, identify the weight. What specific skill is this ambiguity testing? Is it patience with unclear timelines, courage to set boundaries? Stage 2, adjust your grip. How can you engage differently? Maybe it's choosing not to chase vague replies or drafting a boundary script like, "I thrive with clear communication. Can we align on next steps?" Stage 3, track progressive overload. Note how your responses evolve. Last month, a ghosted text ruined your afternoon. Today, you felt the sting but redirected your energy within minutes. That's measurable growth. The workplace is a perfect proving ground for this. Imagine your manager oscillates between micromanaging and disappearing. Traditional thinking says this is dysfunctional. The obstacle as fuel mindset asks, what muscles does this develop? Maybe it's adaptability, learning to excel with limited direction. Or assertiveness, documenting your work so their inconsistency can't obscure your contributions. Even better, it might reveal when to transfer departments, recognizing that some weights aren't worth lifting long term. But the true test comes in romantic ambiguity. Consider someone who alternates between deep connection and sudden withdrawal. Most people exhaust themselves trying to stabilize the other person's fluctuations. The Stoic athlete sees a different challenge. Can I maintain my own equilibrium regardless of their tides? Each withdrawal becomes a chance to practice emotional self-sufficiency, not by shutting down, but by discovering how fully you can show up for your own life when someone else is inconsistently present. The brilliance of this approach lies in its inversion of power dynamics. No longer do mixed signals drain you, they energize your growth. Like a boxer studying an opponent's erratic movements to sharpen reflexes, you start seeing life's ambiguities as sparring partners honing your discernment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That cryptic text, it's advancing your clarity. That flaky friend, they're teaching you detachment. Not every weight deserves permanent space in your life, but while it's there, you might as well let it make you stronger. Try this today. Pick one recent mixed signal that unsettled you and reclassify it as a workout. Name the muscle it's targeting, perhaps your tolerance for uncertainty or your courage to seek clarification. Then design one small rep, a journal entry analyzing your growth edges, or a practice conversation where your voice needs calmly. Over time, you'll catch yourself approaching confusion not with dread, but with the quiet focus of an athlete stepping into the gym, ready to transform resistance into strength, one rep at a time. There's an almost magnetic pull to demand answers when someone's behavior feels unclear, to text "what's going on with you" or insist "we need to talk." But Stoicism offers a radical alternative, the power of silence. Not the cold, punishing silence of withdrawal, but the intentional pause that lets ambiguity resolve itself like sediment settling in water. Imagine holding a compass in a storm. True north emerges not by shaking it frantically, but by holding it steady. The same applies to mixed signals. When you resist the urge to chase clarity on someone else's timeline, you accomplish two things. You avoid distorting the truth with pressure, and you preserve your peace while reality reveals itself. History holds a striking example. When Cato the Younger faced political rivals spreading rumors about him, his allies urged him to issue public denials. He refused, saying, "If they speak the truth, why should I deny it? If they lie, time will expose them." His silence wasn't weakness, it was unshakable trust in the self-correcting nature of truth. Modern relationships thrive on this same principle. That friend who's been distant, bombarding them with "are we okay?" texts might force a premature answer or, worse, a lie to avoid conflict. But silence grounded not in resentment but in patience creates space for authentic reflection. Either they'll return with genuine reconnection, or their continued absence becomes its own clarity. Here's how to practice this without tipping into passivity. First, distinguish strategic silence from avoidance. Silence as a Stoic tool means consciously choosing not to demand answers, not pretending the ambiguity doesn't exist. Track their actions dispassionately. They cancelled 3 times without rescheduling. They haven't initiated contact in 2 weeks. The facts speak louder than your anxious interpretations. Second, redirect the energy you'd spend overanalyzing into unshakable routines. Marcus Aurelius maintained his equanimity amid betrayals by anchoring himself in morning rituals, writing, reflection, exercise. Your version might be a workout, a creative project, or time with consistent people. These anchors prevent silence from feeling like stagnation. The workplace reveals this power vividly. A colleague takes credit for your idea in a meeting. The ego's reaction is immediate confrontation or passive-aggressive comments, but silence paired with documentation can be far more potent. You might wait for the next meeting and casually interject. To build on what Sarah shared, here's the full data set I compiled last week. No accusation, just undeniable proof of your contribution. Their discomfort isn't your responsibility, your integrity is. Romantic ambiguity especially tempts us to force clarity. A partner grows distant, panic sets in. But consider the alternative. Rather than extracting a half-hearted "I'm just busy," you let their actions narrate the truth. Silence here isn't about playing games. It's about respecting yourself too much to beg for crumbs of attention. Either they recognize your absence and re-engage meaningfully, or their indifference answers every question you were afraid to ask. The brilliance of silence lies in its filtering effect. Like a sieve, it separates what's fleeting from what's foundational. People who value you will navigate the quiet to reconnect. Those who don't will drift away, leaving you with a clarity no conversation could have manufactured. Seneca wrote, "Speech is the mirror of the mind, but silence is often its wiser cousin." In a world addicted to instant answers, choosing stillness isn't surrender, it's the ultimate act of self-possession. Detaching from outcomes doesn't mean indifference. it's about shifting your anchor from what you can't control, how others respond, to what you can, how you choose to show up. Picture a gardener planting seeds. Their job isn't to obsess over each one's germination, but to tend the soil faithfully. Stoics called this the archer's mindset, focusing on drawing the bow with skill, not whether the wind carries the arrow off course. When mixed signals hit, this philosophy asks a liberating question: did I act with integrity? If the answer's yes, the rest isn't yours to agonize over. Consider how this reframes modern dilemmas. You send a heartfelt apology to a friend who leaves it unanswered. Fixating on their response keeps you stuck in limbo. Detaching from the outcome means honoring your own values. You did the right thing by apologizing while releasing the demand for a specific reaction. Marcus Aurelius modeled this daily. As emperor, he faced constant political betrayals, yet his journals reveal a man more concerned with his own fairness than others' loyalty. "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be," he wrote. Be one. That shift from "will they forgive me" to "did I act with compassion" cuts the tether between your self-worth and others' inconsistencies. The workplace reveals this brilliantly. Imagine pitching an idea to executives who react with vague nods and noncommittal emails. The outcome-focused mind spirals. Do they hate it? Am I failing? The Stoic approach. Did I prepare thoroughly, present with clarity? If so, their ambiguity becomes their burden, not yours. This isn't about shrugging off feedback, it's about differentiating constructive input from the noise of others' indecision. A surgeon doesn't judge their skill by whether every patient complies with post-op care. They focus on performing the operation flawlessly. Similarly, your responsibility ends where your influence does. Relationships test this most fiercely. A partner who oscillates between affection and distance tempts you to obsess over their behavior. Detaching means asking, have I been honest, kind, and present? If yes, their inconsistency reflects their inner world, not your adequacy. The ancient Stoics trained for this by visualizing losing everything, not to breed pessimism, but to practice valuing their character above external validation. Try this reframe next time ambiguity arises. Even if this connection fades, will I respect how I showed up? That question tilts the compass inward where true north lies. Practical detachment requires rituals. Start with the integrity audit, a nightly review of 3 questions. 1. Where did I act aligned with my values today? 2. Where did I let others' ambiguity dictate my mood? 3. What's one way to recenter on action over outcome tomorrow? This isn't self-judgment, it's recalibration. The paradox: detaching often yields better results. People sense when you're not emotionally hostage to their responses, and that very freedom can inspire clarity. A client who senses your calm assurance, "I'll deliver excellence whether you recognize it or not," often stops playing games. But even if they don't, you've kept something far more valuable: your sovereignty. That's the hidden gift of mixed signals, their invitations to build a self-concept so sturdy that no external vagueness can shake its foundation. The Stoic pause, a seemingly simple tool with extraordinary power. Here's how it works. When faced with mixed signals, you impose a deliberate 24-hour waiting period before crafting your response. Not 24 hours of obsessive rumination, but 24 hours of purposeful distance, allowing the initial emotional storm to subside so clarity can take its place. Picture this: your partner sends a text that lands like a gut punch, vague, dismissive, tone-deaf. Your fingers itch to fire back with equal venom or desperate pleading. But instead, you set the phone down, you sleep on it. You let a full rotation of the earth pass before reopening the conversation. What feels like an eternity in the moment becomes a gift. The space to choose your words instead of being hijacked by them. This technique isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about respecting them enough not to let them dictate your actions. Ancient Stoics like Seneca practiced this daily. In his letters, he described how he'd wait to respond to provocations until he could see the color of his emotions clearly, whether they stemmed from legitimate concern or ego-fueled reactivity. Modern neuroscience backs this. Studies show the amygdala, our brain's alarm system, needs roughly 18 to 24 hours to reset after emotional triggers. That delayed text reply or cryptic comment from a colleague. Your first interpretation is often the loudest, not the wisest. Try this real-world application. A friend cancels plans last minute with a flimsy excuse, leaving you simmering. The old pattern might involve a passive-aggressive, fine, whatever, or an over-accommodating, no worries, that bottles up resentment. The Stoic pause rewires that impulse. For 24 hours, you sit with the discomfort without acting on it. You might journal the raw reaction, "They don't value my time," then revisit it the next day to distill a principled response, "I need reliability to feel respected." The result, instead of mirroring their inconsistency, you model the very clarity you wish they'd offered. Workplace conflicts especially benefit from this cooling-off period. Imagine receiving feedback from your manager that's equal parts praise and vague criticism. Great initiative, but your approach isn't quite landing. The knee-jerk reaction might be defensiveness or frantic overcorrection. But after 24 hours of reflection, you might realize the ambiguity isn't about your performance, it's about their lack of clear benchmarks. Your follow-up shifts accordingly. Could you share an example of when my approach didn't land so I can align better? Now you're problem-solving, not people-pleasing. The magic of the Stoic pause reveals itself in the patterns you'll uncover over time. That family member who always sends guilt-tripping messages. After several 24-hour response cycles, you'll notice their words lose their emotional grip. You start seeing their behavior as predictable, whether annoying, but no longer disruptive. Even better, you'll catch yourself pausing instinctively before reacting to life's smaller irritations. The rude barrister, the traffic jam, the delayed package. What began as a tool for navigating mixed signals becomes a lifestyle of intentional response. Here's the ultimate test of the pause, when silence feels more powerful than speech. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of a chess player contemplating their next move, strategic, unhurried, owning the tempo of the game. Mixed signals thrive in the urgency they create. The Stoic pause dismantles that urgency entirely. You'll find that many of the ambiguities that once demanded immediate resolution don't just feel smaller after a day, they often resolve themselves without your intervention. And for those that don't, you'll meet them with the quiet precision of someone who knows the difference between reacting and responding. That's the alchemy of time, transforming emotional turbulence into clear-eyed action. Practicing indifference in Stoicism doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting things you can't control dictate your emotional weather. Imagine standing on the shore watching waves crash against rocks. Some are gentle, some are violent, but none of them demand your reaction. That's the essence of Stoic indifference, recognizing that another person's mixed signals are like those waves. Their inconsistency is their own rhythm, not your responsibility to interpret or tame. This philosophy traces back to Epictetus, who taught that external events, including other people's words and actions, are like clay in a potter's hands. The clay itself is indifferent. What matters is how you shape your response to it. When a friend oscillates between warmth and silence, practicing indifference means observing their behavior without letting it dictate your inner state. You might notice their patterns, the way they text enthusiastically for weeks, then vanish, but you refuse to assign those patterns the power to unsettle you. Here's the critical distinction. Indifference isn't apathy. Apathy says, I don't care if they're in my life. Indifference says, I care, but their actions won't determine my peace. Picture a gardener who loves their roses but doesn't rage against the weather. They tend to the garden diligently, yet when a storm damages the blooms, they focus on what they can repair, not on cursing the wind. Similarly, you can value relationships deeply while remaining emotionally untethered to others' inconsistencies. Consider how this plays out in modern scenarios. A coworker alternates between collaborative and dismissive. The indifferent response isn't pretending their behavior doesn't exist, it's acknowledging it without internalizing it. You might think their mood swings are their own, my work speaks for itself, or a romantic partner who's hot then cold. Indifference allows you to say, I enjoy our connection when it's present, but their inconsistency isn't a reflection of my worth. The power of this practice lies in its liberation. Most mixed signals hurt because we secretly hope they'll change, that the distant friend will finally become reliable, that the half-committed partner will wake up one day all in. Indifference asks a different question, what if they don't? And then it whispers the Stoic secret, you'll still be whole. Try this reframe. Next time someone's ambiguity triggers that familiar ache, label it external data rather than emotional evidence. Their silence isn't proof you're unlovable, it's just information about their communication style. Their vague compliments aren't clues to decode, they're neutral observations. Over time, you'll catch yourself responding to life's uncertainties not with clenched fists, but with open hands ready to engage, but just as ready to let go. That's the ultimate freedom Stoic indifference offers, the ability to hold people lightly, to appreciate their presence without needing their consistency to feel grounded. Like a tree that doesn't uproot itself when the wind changes direction, you learn to sway without breaking, rooted in your own stability, no matter how others choose to blow. When mixed signals leave you paralyzed between chasing clarity and walking away, the four virtues filter cuts through the noise with surgical precision. This framework, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, isn't just philosophical ornamentation. It's a set of working tools to dissect ambiguity and reveal your next right move. Imagine standing at a crossroads where every path is shrouded in fog. These four virtues become lanterns, each casting light on a different facet of your dilemma. Wisdom asks, what's really happening here? Courage demands, what tough action does integrity require? Justice whispers, am I treating them and myself fairly? And temperance reminds you, how much energy does this truly deserve? Together, they transform emotional chaos into a step-by-step decision matrix. Start with wisdom, the virtue of seeing clearly. Before reacting to someone's hot and cold behavior, play detective. Gather evidence, note specific instances of inconsistency, compare their words to their actions, and consider alternative explanations. A colleague who alternates between enthusiastic collaboration and radio silence might be struggling with workload shame, not disrespecting you. Wisdom separates facts from stories, revealing whether you're dealing with a true pattern or temporary turbulence. The Stoics called this phronsis practical wisdom that discerns reality from perception. Like a doctor diagnosing before prescribing, wisdom ensures your response fits the actual ailment. Now apply courage, not the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. Mixed signals thrive in the silence we keep to avoid confrontation. Courage interrupts that cycle. If a friend's sporadic communication leaves you feeling disposable, courage might look like sending the text you've drafted 10 times in your head. I've noticed our connection feels uneven lately. Can we talk about that? Here's the key. Courage isn't about demanding change from others. It's about honoring your need for clarity. Ancient Stoics like Cato demonstrated this when they spoke unpopular truths in the Roman Senate, knowing backlash would follow. Your arena might be smaller, a relationship chat, a work meeting, but the principle holds. Courage acts on principle, not probability of success. Justice shifts the focus outward, asking how your response balances fairness to others and yourself. Consider the flaky relative who expects your constant availability despite their unpredictability. Justice examines the ledger. Are you tolerating behavior you'd never inflict on others? Are you sacrificing your boundaries to spare their discomfort? Sometimes justice means giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Other times, it's holding them accountable with firm kindness. Marcus Aurelius modeled this balance daily, weighing mercy for enemies with duty to Rome. In modern terms, justice might mean telling a wishy-washy dating partner, "I enjoy our time together, but I need consistency to keep investing." You're not issuing ultimatums, you're aligning actions with mutual respect. Finally, temperance, the art of measured response. Not every ambiguity warrants a showdown. Temperance asks, is this a boulder blocking my path or a pebble I can step over? That acquaintance who sometimes likes your posts but never replies to texts. Probably not worth dissecting, but the business partner whose vague commitments jeopardize your livelihood, that demands energy. Temperance is the virtue that keeps you from pouring gallons of effort into ounce-sized problems. The Stoics visualized this as the reserve clause, adding fate permitting to every plan to avoid overinvestment in uncontrollable outcomes. Here's how to activate this filter in real time. Next time mixed signals strike, grab a notebook and create 4 quadrants labeled with each virtue. Under wisdom, list objective observations about their behavior. Under courage, note the uncomfortable but necessary actions you've avoided. Under justice, assess whether your current approach is fair to all parties. Under temperance, decide how much mental real estate this deserves. The completed grid will spotlight your clearest path forward, whether it's initiating a conversation, adjusting expectations, or reallocating your energy entirely. What makes this framework revolutionary is its universality. A teenager can use it to navigate a friend's unreliable behavior just as effectively as a CEO can apply it to a board member's contradictory feedback. The virtues don't change, only the stakes do, and in practicing them you'll notice something profound. The more you let wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance guide your reactions, the less power mixed signals have to unsettle you. You'll start seeing ambiguity not as a threat, but as an invitation to exercise your finest judgment, one virtue-filtered decision at a time. Imagine waking up 5 years from now and looking back at the text message that's consuming your thoughts today, the one left on read, the vague reply that sent you spiraling. From that future vantage point, how much weight would those ambiguous moments truly carry? This is the Stoic time machine, a mental exercise that transports you forward to glimpse the impermanence of today's uncertainties. It's not about dismissing your present feelings, it's about contextualizing them within the vast arc of your life. Think of it like rewatching a movie you once found unbearably tense. Knowing the ending lets you appreciate the plot twists without the original anxiety. History's Stoics practiced this regularly. Seneca would write letters imagining his future self reflecting on current troubles, noting how what torments us now will one day be material for stories we tell. He wasn't minimizing pain, he was expanding perspective. Modern psychology validates this. Studies show that mental time travel, visualizing future recall of present events, reduces emotional intensity by anchoring us in a bigger picture. Here's how to activate the time machine today. Let's say a romantic partner's mixed signals have you tied in knots. Close your eyes and fast forward to a future version of yourself, happier, wiser, perhaps even with someone whose consistency makes this former confusion seem trivial. From there, ask, did this ambiguity alter the trajectory of my life in any meaningful way? Often, the answer is no. What does matter is how you navigated the uncertainty, whether you lost yourself in speculation or cultivated resilience. The technique shines brightest in professional ambiguity. A manager's erratic feedback feels like a crisis today, but the time machine reveals it as a blip in your career, one that taught you to document achievements or seek clearer benchmarks. Even interpersonal slights, the friend who forgets your birthday, the colleague who takes credit for your ideas, shrink when viewed through the lens of, will this memory even surface at my next milestone celebration? But here's the twist, the time machine isn't just for minimizing pain, it's for maximizing growth. project yourself forward not just to see what won't matter, but to identify what will. That anxiety you feel about addressing someone's inconsistency, your future self likely regrets not setting boundaries sooner, the energy spent decoding vague texts. They'd wish you'd redirected it toward creative projects or deeper connections. Try this tonight. Pick one current source of mixed signal stress and journal from your imagined future. Dear past me, I remember how much brain space you gave to. Here's what I wish you'd known. The clarity that follows often surprises, not because the present hurt vanishes, but because you start acting from the wisdom of someone who's already survived it. The Stoic time machine doesn't ask you to pretend today's struggles are insignificant. It simply reminds you that you're capable of weathering them, and that on the other side you'll marvel not at how heavy they felt, but at how lightly they eventually land. There comes a point in every ambiguous situation when the most stoic action isn't analysis or patience, it's release. Not the dramatic slamming of doors or burning of bridges, but the quiet, deliberate act of stepping back when clarity refuses to emerge. This is letting go with grace, the art of recognizing that some mixed signals aren't puzzles to solve but boundaries in disguise, signs that your energy is better invested elsewhere. Picture a sailor adjusting their sails to the wind's inconsistency. When the gusts remain unpredictable no matter how they tack, the wisest choice isn't to curse the wind but to find a new current. Stoicism reframes endings not as failures but as natural conclusions to experiments in connection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. And when they're gone, let them go." Notice the duality here, wholehearted engagement paired with unconditional release. This isn't indifference, it's the recognition that holding onto ambiguity often costs more than it's worth. Think of the friend who's been too busy for months but posts constant social media updates, or the colleague who dangles career opportunities without follow-through. At some point, the healthiest question shifts from "what do they mean?" to "how much longer will I wait to find out?" The elegance of stoic release lies in what it chooses to carry forward. Resentment, obsessive replaying of conversations, lingering hope, these get left behind. What remains are the lessons. I now know I thrive with clear communication. I've learned to trust actions over words. History offers a masterclass in this through Cotto the Younger, who faced relentless political betrayals yet never wasted energy demanding explanations from those who'd proven unreliable. He simply reallocated his trust, measuring people by their track records rather than their excuses. Practical release begins with a simple audit. List the mental real estate occupied by someone's inconsistency, the time spent analyzing their texts, the emotional roller coaster of their hot and cold behavior. Now imagine redirecting that energy toward relationships and projects that reciprocate your investment. This isn't giving up, it's upgrading your priorities. Like a gardener pruning dead branches to nourish the healthy ones, you're not abandoning the garden, you're ensuring its growth, the final test of graceful release. Gratitude for the ambiguity itself. Those unclear signals weren't obstacles, they were mirrors showing you where your boundaries needed reinforcing, where your self-worth could deepen. The flaky friend taught you to value reliability. The elusive romantic prospect clarified your non-negotiables. Even the vague manager sharpened your ability to advocate for clear expectations. Every unresolved situation leaves behind something far more valuable than closure. The unshakable knowledge that you can walk away with your integrity intact, not because you didn't care, but because you cared enough to stop begging for breadcrumbs when you deserved the whole meal. And so we end where Stoicism always begins with agency. Mixed signals only have the power we grant them. When you choose release, you're not admitting defeat. You're declaring that your peace is too precious to leave hostage to someone else's inconsistencies. The wind may never steady itself, but you, like the seasoned sailor, can always adjust your sails. So there you have it, 25 Stoic techniques to transform mixed signals from sources of confusion into opportunities for growth. Think of these not as abstract philosophies, but as practical tools in your emotional resilience toolkit, each one designed to help you navigate ambiguity with clarity and confidence. From the grounding power of the dichotomy of control to the liberating shift of Amor Fati, these strategies have weathered centuries because they work. They've guided emperors through political intrigue, philosophers through exile, and now they're here to guide you through the modern complexities of relationships, work, and everyday life. But here's the key: these techniques only work if you use them. Like a muscle, emotional resilience grows stronger with practice. Start small, maybe with the Stoic pause, giving yourself 24 hours before reacting to a confusing text, or the view from above, zooming out to see how little that vague comment might matter in the grand scheme. Keep a journal to track your progress, noting which methods help you stay centered when others' inconsistency threatens to pull you off course. Over time, you'll find yourself responding to mixed signals not with anxiety, but with curiosity and calm. Imagine looking back a year from now, realizing how far you've come, how what once felt like emotional whiplash now barely registers. That's the power of daily practice. And the best part, you don't have to master all 25 techniques at once. Just pick one that resonates and build from there. So let's make this interactive. Which technique will you try first? Drop your choice in the comments below. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. And if you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights on living with clarity and resilience. Remember, mixed signals don't have to derail you. With the right tools, you can meet them not as a victim of circumstance, but as the steady, unshakable architect of your own peace. Happy practicing.